Greetings again. I've had a few questions about where I get my backing tracks from, and the simple answer is I get them from here. I don't buy in any backing tracks, I create them all from scratch, and as a result I thought I'd do a comprehensive studio tour, probably more for my benefit than yours. Apologies if it gets a bit geeky, but comes with the territory. Start off with the actual space itself, which is actually a 4 meters by 3 meters box. I haven't got a clue what that is in feet and inches, but you can look it up if you so wish. Anyway, coming in through the door, which is at the moment behind the camera. Okay, the first thing you'll see is the guitars, the double bass, the piano. There's a skeleton with a duster for a willy, don't ask. The guitars themselves could make an entire video alone. Let me know down below if you'd like to see that. And yeah, so I'll take you through the workflow in order as I use it. We'll start off with the input patch down the bottom there, where the mics get plugged in. I regret putting it all the way down there, and I haven't got around to changing it. But as I found, crawling around on the floor is actually quite good for an old man with creaky bones and rusty knees. The mic connections are then effectively split in two, using the direct out on the desk, which is pre-everything. One half goes to these 8 channels on the mixer, which I use to monitor myself in real time when I'm tracking. They're fully functioning, and I can use all of the inserts and effects which don't get printed or recorded into Logic. The other half, from where the input is split, that goes to my interface, which is just down there. It's a Behringer Euphoria 1820, and that's a fairly recent replacement for in the graveyard down there. There's the Motu 828 that snuffed it. I only use the 8 inputs on the front, which have built-in mic pre's, but I keep the line inputs available too from the patch bay below. Output-wise, I have all 20 going, plus another couple on an aggregate device as well. There's 10 analog outs on the device. I run outputs 11 and 12 via a SP diff converter at the back, and channels 13 to 20 are converted via ADAT by an ancient Motu 2408, which is in standalone mode, and that's how I get the full 20 outputs. All those 20 outputs then get plumbed into this half of the desk, where I can very easily build up a mix while I'm tracking, and I don't have to fiddle about with a mouse or a trackpad, which can be a right pain in the lower lumbar when I'm standing there and comping together about 8 different guitar parts. The desk itself was almost a complete giveaway. It cost me about £300 euros, as no one wants junk like this anymore. The cables that I needed to hook it all up cost way more than that. The plan was to buy a non-functioning, bigger live desk, cover it in plexiglass, and just have it functioning as a basic tabletop conversation piece, if you know what I mean, and not actually use it. But hey-ho. Why, you ask, have a massive analog desk? Well, it's simple, it's brilliant fun, and it's also useful for holding your sheet music. I do only really mix in the box, but it's unbelievably practical to fiddle with when I'm tracking and I don't have to touch the trackpad, find the cursor or pull down menus. You know, it's a process which makes me want to self-harm. The iMac itself is a 2013, which is running the latest version of Logic that I can. It's had an SSD upgrade, and I've repaired the tilt mechanism that the Apple obsolescence department has very kindly designed. Whilst I'm tracking, it functions like an old multi-track tape machine, and with the Behringer X Touch, I can pretty much get through a whole tracking session without having to touch the trackpad at all, and I don't even have to look at the screen either, because it's got the bars and beats and everything on the display. But I do wish I bought the full-size Behringer X Touch though. The second monitor screen is there just to display the mix window or PDF sheet music. The main outputs from the desk and from the interface when I'm mixing in the box are fed into the Mackie Big Knob, which needs no introductions. And I can select mute, etc., source for the monitors, which are 20 plus year old M-Audio BX8s. They seem quite happy and have no issues with them. On top of those are an even older pair of NS10s, which aren't hooked up right now, and they're used mainly as a pig perch. You have to look after your talent. I bought these back in about 2000, 2001. It cost me about 100 quid in the UK because they weren't very popular at the time and nobody wanted them. I was told which studio they came from, but I can't remember which one. Apparently they do have some pedigree. Well, not anymore, they don't. My wife really likes them, so I'm not allowed to sell them. On the top left-hand side, I have an old Fostex D1624, or at least I have the controller here. It's basically a bomb-proof 16-track tapeless machine from back in the Stone Age that I'm planning to use again at some point when I can figure out how to convert it to SSD, though it still works pretty well as it is. The only drawback is it doesn't have balanced ins or outs. Below that I have a Zoom H8 which I use for location recording. I also have a Zoom H4n that I use for playback on video shoots and recording daft sound effects. Next to that I have this ancient Boss Dr. Rhythm 880. I have used it for drum sounds on occasions, but the real reason it's still there is because it's the guitar amp. As daft as it sounds, user presets, I think it's number 14 and number 23, produce consistently better results with less fannying and farting about than I could ever get from miking up my Mesa Boogie and pissing off not only my neighbours but my neighbours' neighbours and my neighbours' neighbours' neighbours, etc. And it's way, way better than the stupid Pod Pro that I have in the rack. I keep it around purely for visual comedy effect. I'd flush it down the toilet if it fitted. But seriously, I bought that for, I think it was about £25 pound euro dollars. Also, I don't use a bass amp either. I have the cheap active DI box down there and the signal goes right in. I don't use any modelling amps on the bass, it's just EQ and compression. The keyboard situation, I use the Korg micro key most of the time for inputting drums. I prefer the Korg. I'm not a keyboard player. I have the the Akai MPK Mini down below. I don't like that as much. Below in the rack I have a TC VoiceWorks that I never use. I must fire it up one day and have a mess with it. Below that I have a Nanoverb, another TC half rack and a Lexicon MX200 which are fed from the AUX's post fader on the desk. Below that is the compressors. There's the compulsory Behringer from back in the 90s and the Samson SCOM 4, which is actually quite good, quite usable. Don't listen to the gear snobs. I use those on the channel inserts. Then there's this big drawer for mics and strings and other junk, and the power amp for the NS10s. The microphone that's always out and is first in line for hi-hats, pigs, cowbells, armpit farts, other bodily percussion is this lowly Behringer B1 with the shield behind it. I'm not convinced that the shield actually helps the situation at all at this point, but it's a good microphone. I'm quite happy with it. I do have better microphones, but I don't mind if that one stays out, gets knocked over, spat at, you know the drill. On the other side at the top we have the USB Garden, which has been genetically pre-programmed to be a mess. There's a backup hard drive, a Boss Giga delay which is plumbed into groups 1 and 2 at the moment, as I'll often use that as a guitar group. There's a tuner which is fed from the Matrix on the desk. I'm not quite sure what to use the Matrix for, so any suggestions in the comments would be gratefully received. Below that we have a power distribution at the top. Basically I can turn everything off from the front. If I'm not using it, I don't like to have it switched on. The aforementioned interface, and below that a veritable Medusa's bikini wax of a patch bay where I can plug absolutely everything into absolutely everything else whenever. I just bought the 1/4-inch patch bays as they were just cheap and easy to find. Somewhere in there is a 4-channel headphone amp which I keep around just in case I do ever find some friends and they come over for a session. Maybe that's what I could use the Matrix for. That's about it, apart from a big old stash of forgotten crappy pedals and lenses and other junk. The sound deadening is totally DIY, and in my opinion, very effective, as the whole lot costs less than $50 pound euros. There's a simple wooden frame which I made from old pallet wood, covered with fabric, stuffed with rock wool. I have 2 small ones behind the monitors, then 2 more each side, 2 at the back, and 2 more up at the ceiling. It's not bad, it's not perfect, but it's better than nothing. So that was that. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you or at least Piggy will see you on Friday. Isn't that right, Piggy?